My professional background has been varied. I have an undergrad degree in psychology, a master's degree in social work. I have a doctorate in education from the University of Toronto. I've taken various courses just to expand my horizons, including a certificate in neuropsychophysiology. And then because I believe so much in lifelong learning, I've also gone back to school in what's called non-formal education for a doctorate in the area of neuroscience. It's been an eclectic career in many ways. I began by working for a counseling agency and also for a city councilor because I was interested in social change and politics and also psychology. From there, I ended up moving over to heading up an organization called the National Eating Disorder Information Center, and that's been going now for 30 years at Toronto Hospital, and it helps people with anorexia, bulimia, and other eating disorders from across the country. And then from there I became the executive director of the Alzheimer's Society, which was the first society formed anywhere in the world. And so we helped build that up with counseling and research and support groups and really raise the profile of the disease. And that again was quite a while ago. And then I went back to get a doctorate at the University of Toronto. In the meantime, I also was involved in social work. That was my master's degree. And social work did not have any statutory regulation at all in Ontario. In fact, we were the only jurisdiction in North America without any form at all of legislation, which meant that anybody could hang up their shingle and say they were a social worker. So all 50 US states and 9 provinces had it, we didn't. I was asked to head up this campaign to achieve regulation, which instead of taking the 6 months that I expected it would, so I took a leave of absence from Alzheimer's, it took 10 years. When I was in graduate school, I had a mentor, Dr. Eva Phillip, who was in social work and helped guide me along and was really a sounding board in many ways. So a combination of being out in the field, honing my own interests, and having mentors, which really made a difference because none of us become successful entirely on our own. I firmly believe that. I've experienced that. And so I can't imagine a life where I'm not exposing myself to new ideas all the time. Whether one is 15 or 95, there's always things to learn. And when we learn, we're implying that there are things that we don't know, that we have to learn to advance our own personal knowledge and then knowledge in general. And for the past 24 years, I've been an academic at the University of Waterloo and also here in Toronto at the University of Guelph Humber. I'm the Honorary Patron of Brain Injury Canada. I was Chief of the Patrons Council of the Alzheimer's Society, Honorary Chair of the Eating Disorder Center at Toronto Hospital. The Weizmann Institute of Science is an amazing organization, and in Canada I'm the major advisor to them. But this is an institute that actually, believe it or not, has more patents registered than all the Ivy League schools combined. So number one is Weizmann, the small organization, but does fantastic work. And they have more patents than Harvard, Yale, MIT, Columbia, etc. Every time you pull out your Visa or your debit card, in the ATM machine, thank the Weizmann. They invented the encryption code for that. So I love taking a part in their vision, of science and making science available for humanity, humanize it and make it real and practical. So I do that, and also there are other positions I hold as well. So that kind of ties into all of my background, but it's another separate area, I suppose. In terms of accomplishments, I mean, I've had a few in terms of influencing government policy or setting up organizations, etc. But I think probably the most satisfying has been working with students and also giving back to society through the organizations that I play a role in. And I say that because as a professor, one of the roles we have is to stimulate students as much as possible, to allow them to blossom and flower themselves. And to do that, I think it's so important to treat students as human beings. I mean, so often I'm sitting there as a professor, standing there, and I'm looking at students, and it's not just the head up, but the student brings in so many parts of themselves, their dreams, their aspirations, their doubts, their fears, all these things. So in relating to students, I find if you can relate to them as people with experiences, I learn from them as much as they learn from me, and we learn from each other. And so to foster that confidence in them through a safe environment by wanting to hear their opinions, so many times I've seen a student turn around and see that education can be something they can own, they can feel proud of, and it's never a straight line, but if they are seriously interested in learning, I'm there to help them. I've now taught about 45 different subjects at college and university, from humanities to political science to psychology, sociology, bioethics, leadership, the list goes on. But despite that, the fact there is so many, you find there's a common core of knowledge that you build up that you can apply to each one of those. So getting into the system and then loving it and finding that students responded is really what helped me carry on in the field. And so I have no regrets. Personal achievements, that's an interesting question, and I suppose we should all be aiming at growing throughout our lives, and I would say my achievement has been really to try to increase my own self-awareness, to be open to other ideas, and the more knowledge we have about ourselves, the more we're able to, I think, ground ourselves in life and be able to deal more effectively with other people. So for me, I would say continuing knowledge and information I love to be exposed to, but also working personally, on myself is really the most satisfying thing that I've done in my life. If I had to choose one word to describe my career and my achievements, I would have to say inspirational. If I'm inspired by something, then I tend to jump in, and it builds on itself that way. So being open to ideas leads to exciting possibilities, leads to inspiration, and that leads to other things. It's never a linear process, but one thing leads to one thing, to another thing, and the journey of life continues. The people who inspire me that way are people who have taken a risk in their life in some way to make a change, sometimes very difficult with scars to prove it in that way. That's a key criterion for me. Secondly, people who are particularly expressive and are able to get their message across, again, in that inspiring way. Orators like Winston Churchill, John F. Kennedy, for example, would be people who I would admire for their vision. Nobody's perfect. We all have our strengths and our limitations, but indeed to carry on in spite of barriers. You know, I think somebody once said that courage isn't the absence of fear, courage is carrying on in spite of fear. And I think that really is one of the mottos that I try to follow, because there are many reasons and times to feel uncertain, to be totally honest with you, but to carry on, to believe in your value system and your convictions, I think is the core of who we are as human beings. Yeah, I'll be leaving my legacy for, I think, those people whom I've interacted with and hopefully have mentored and influenced in some particular way, whether it's a student, letting them gain confidence, or even deciding on a certain career path, which has happened in the past. I think we all leave a few grains of sand on the beach of knowledge, so to speak, and life. I mean, life goes on, and what do we leave behind? It's a sense that we have a purpose in life, that we need to be clear about our own values about our lives, that we aren't perfect, we're going to make mistakes, but in spite of that, to carry on and know that you can find satisfaction in imperfection. Lessons to pass along for future generations, I would say that, again, to work on yourself, be comfortable with your own life, to accept yourself. That is so important. There's so many forces and pressures out there trying to mold you into somebody you may not be. So to be true to yourself, to have something that you believe in, to carry on, to develop a circle of like-minded people who you can share, and we all need that social support. So to be open to relationships, to be open to new ways of thinking. If you can do that in life and help people in any way you can, give back in any way you can, you will have had a memorable life. In terms of how families influence me, my family and my parents traveled extensively around the world, and I had a chance to join them, and as a result, have seen other cultures and other ways of living, which is really important in a globalized world today. I also went to school in Switzerland for a year, had the privilege of doing that. And so again, living in a community with different traditions and customs broadened my mind as well. So really that traveling was a big part of it. And also really to foster the idea that, if you work hard, if you, are prudent and responsible, and take risks that are in your interest, then indeed things may work out for you on this path of life. I'd like to be remembered as somebody who tried to give back to society and who encouraged others to do the same in whichever way they're able to do, to be supportive of people as much as I possibly can, to help them to fulfill their own destinies, to be there to offer that help, and also to mentor other people too as well, which I love doing too. So that's how I'd want to be remembered, somebody who really cared about other people in the main and tried to make their lives better in some way.